I really enjoyed Musai Roshi's talk last week. If you will remember, he talked about intention and meta practices. And I believe he came to the conclusion that for himself that practices such as meta practices, which are intentional, don't seem to work all that well for him. Am I right in saying that?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's fair.
I totally agree with him. Both Musai Roshi and I were raised in the Methodist Church. And I wouldn't say that they engaged in any kind of a meta practice, but they certainly had the 10 Commandments in mind when they did service. And it was pretty much pounded into us. So I feel about intentional practice about the same way that Musai does, probably perhaps even a bit more. I had a psychotherapist who told me one time that nobody could tell me what to do, especially myself. And I have sort of worn that as a badge ever since. So one of the things that I have found to be very attractive about this practice is that it is, in my opinion, very non-intentional. It's sort of like Feldenkrais, or maybe I should say Feldenkrais is sort of like Zen practice. You don't really have to do anything. Once you set yourself on the path, everything just sort of takes care of itself. If you elect to practice at all, that's the one thing that you have to do. You have to buy a ticket in order to take the ride. And I think that there is a reason why intentional practice is doomed to failure. I do not believe that I have an addictive personality, but there was a time in my life when I really liked cigars. And I smoked a lot of them, thus colon cancer. But I finally, many years ago, I shook myself of that addiction. And it was not by trying to give it up. It was, and I didn't even know this at the time, it was a very kind of, a kind of mindfulness practice. That's how I did it. I just simply started taking note of every time I lit up a cigar. I didn't have any judgment around it. I didn't try to tell myself that I was doing something wrong. I just took note of the fact that I was smoking a cigar. And then about, I don't know, 6 months later, I got up one morning and I said to myself, I'm done. And I never lit another cigar again. My attraction to it, my dependency on it, was suddenly taken away. There's a very interesting movie out right now called Mr. Holmes, in which Sherlock Holmes is now 90 years old. And he's suffering all the frailties of an old man. And one of the most annoying of those frailties is his forgetfulness. He's constantly forgetting things. And he goes to have a checkup with his doctor. And his doctor says, "You're becoming quite forgetful, aren't you?" And Sherlock says, "Who, me? Of course not." So the doctor said, "I want you to do something for me." He said, "I want you to get a diary and make a little mark on the page of every day that you find yourself being forgetful." So he did that. He agreed to do that, and he puts a little circle on the page every time he forgets to do something or forgets about something or anything at all. And in the beginning, the first few days, there's one circle, and then maybe there's 2 circles, and then there's 6 circles, and then the camera shows there's a page with 100 circles on it. Well, the movie doesn't make any connection with him becoming less forgetful as a result of this. But one of the things I found interesting is that it changed his life. That practice changed his life. And if you want to see that happen, go see the movie. It's a good movie. Now I want to talk about intentional practice, and I want to do it by using the vehicle of one of the 10 grave precepts. And the precept that I'm going to use is the 7th precept. Anybody know what that is?
Mm-hmm. Do not elevate others.
Pardon?
Do not elevate yourself.
I devalue others.
You're absolutely right. That is the precept. It's stated in a number of different ways. Let me give you an example. In Fusatsu that we say every month here in this zendo, we say, "I vow to refrain from elevating myself and devaluing others." That's the way we say it. Yasutani Roshi said, "Refrain from praising yourself and downgrading others." The Zen Peacemaker Order says, "Refrain from elevating oneself and blaming others." And Aiken Roshi said, "Not praising yourself while abusing others." Well, you get the message. You see what's going on here. I chose this example because of all the precepts. I believe this one to be the hardest to maintain. I think it is much harder to maintain than, I vow to refrain from killing, or stealing, or lying, or any of those other things. This is a precept that it's one of the main ways we express our attachment to the self. Because we are constantly making an effort to present ourselves in a favorable light. We're either exaggerating our merits, or we're outright lying about them. And it doesn't matter what we say about ourselves or how we say it. Whenever we speak about ourselves, we are automatically, either intentionally or unintentionally, devaluing others. It's almost unavoidable. It is unavoidable. Yasutani Roshi had something very interesting to say about this precept. He said, the only way that you can maintain this precept that you can practice this precept is to have a kensho experience. You see, because even if you make an effort to praise other people, you're still making a mistake. You're still not maintaining the precept. Because in order to maintain this precept, you have to dissolve the boundary between self and other. And even if you make an effort to be a good person and to praise other people, you're still making a distinction between self and other. And you're not really solving the problem. And the problem, of course, is what I would characterize as being the original sin in Buddhism, which is not recognizing the codependent arising of the self. You see? Here's what Yasutani had to say about this. Anyone who has had kensho is supposed to have realized the emptiness of the vast sky and the great earth, right? If there is a boundary line between self and other, if there is a break between self and other, it is not kensho. Isn't this the seamless tomb? Isn't this the one mu that runs straight through heaven and earth? Isn't this the complete self? Where is there room to praise oneself and downgrade others? People who speak ill of others and boastfully of themselves have not had kensho. That's putting it right on the line, isn't it? He goes on to say that if you've had kensho, it becomes impossible to talk about yourself without praising others, without recognizing the others. And they need not be people, it is all myriad things. It is recognizing that all myriad things support your virtue. Here's what Dogen has to say about this particular precept in the Kyoju Kaiman. Buddhas and patriarchs have realized the emptiness of the vast sky and the great earth. When they manifest as the great body, they are like the sky, without inside or outside. When they manifest as the Dharmakaya, there is not even an inch of earth on which to lay hold. Now, of course, when he says, when they manifest as the great body, that doesn't mean that we suddenly expand to the size of the universe. What is meant is that we're living in such a way that the whole universe becomes your body. And there isn't any inner or outer. Everything is completely collapsed into one. Your environment is yourself. The person who seems to be your enemy is in fact yourself. In this same commentary on this precept, Yasutani said, there's only one sumo wrestler in the ring. It is a transformation from self-clinging to self-forgetting. And it is within that transformation that you begin to have a conversation with all myriad things. This is the same conversation that Shakyamuni had when he arose from sitting below the Bodhi tree, when he said, what did he say? I want to get this right. I and the great earth and beings simultaneously attain the way.
First he said, wonderful, wonderful.
Well, Shakyamuni was, in fact, I think, the first to comprehend that there is no distinction between self and others. And that is what this practice is. That is what Buddhism is. It is the practice of no self. And if we don't have experience of that larger self, we continue to delude ourselves with the smaller self. Dogen said, fools look at themselves as if looking at another. Developed men, realized men, look at others and see themselves. So, if we cannot deal with this precept intentionally, how do we practice it?
Put circles on the page.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
There are lots of forms about mindfulness, being aware of when it happens.
That's right. Another way to do it is to sit on your cushion and look at the way you construct the self. You don't have to make any kind of a big judgment about it. You don't have to suffer any guilt about this. All you have to do is take a look at how you go about constructing a self and the purposes for which you use it. And yes, every time you say something disparaging about another person, you can certainly put a mark down on the paper. I did this for a while when I was trying to deal with anger. I put a mark down on a notebook that I carried in my shirt pocket every time I got angry. And very much in the same way that Sherlock Holmes ended up with a crowded page of marks, I went through that notebook in about a day and had to go buy another one. And I kept making the marks, and I did that for a while. I did that for a couple of months. But eventually I found that my anger had, to a large extent, dissipated. Yes, I was a whole lot angrier than I am now. I think that all of the precepts can be looked at in this way. I think that if you were to look deeply at all of the other 9 great precepts, you would see the connection between self and other. All of them can be looked at in those terms. And any practice that attempts to, dare I say, deconstruct the self is of value. Trying to spend the day without disparaging others in an intentional way is not nearly as helpful, in my opinion.
I feel devalued as an other by Dogen's remark.
Do you?
Yeah,
What was
Explain
Dogen's remark?
I'm sorry?
Repeat the remark.
Well, Dogen's remark, you know, that a man of, a fool, you know, will make comparisons, and a developed man, yeah, will not, and or something to that effect. And so I guess I feel like he's calling me a fool, because I don't consider myself a developed man, because that would be setting myself apart
I agree with you.
from others.
I agree with you. Fool is a pejorative term. And I don't know if that's Dogen's fault or the translators.
But yeah,
Ah,
well, take Yasutani then, you know, the way he says it, same
Right.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he only says anyone who has had Kensho and anyone who has not had Kensho.
But that's a setup.
Yeah, I want some of that Kensho.
Yasutani had Kensho, and he certainly felt like there were enemies in the world.
Touche.
But isn't
Okay.
the point that we're working towards something being non-dual? If it's truly non-dual, there's not a you and me and better and worse. And the practice of bowing not to something, but with something, a tree, or before you take an image of a photograph, you ask it, not literally, you're asking it as one, to be as one, to take that image. Or, you know, I find that bowing can be either like elevating oneself, you know, or it can really be becoming one with the tree, the dog. So it's really about becoming, or in the story where he's being beaten and he becomes the green paint on the wall, because he's just become not one or two or any of this, he's just all of it, and he's just noticing that.
Well, I would like to say something about the use of Kensho in this regard. Yasutani uses it repeatedly in his commentaries on the Kyoju Kaima. Dogen, on the other hand, would never use the term Kensho. As a matter of fact, he didn't believe that there was such a thing as Kensho. But the expression that he uses in this remark, I think, is very interesting. He says, "Fools look at themselves as if looking at another. Developed men." Developed men is the term that he uses. Look at others and see themselves. How do you feel about that?
I'm starting to feel better.
Because you're a developed man.
No, I think I just got developed a little bit now. Thank you.
Words, you know, words are conventions that enslave us. You know, it's like the fact of the matter is that in this precept, both self, the word self, and the word other is used, and they are conventional. They are conventions. They don't actually exist. They don't have any substance, and to even use them within that context is problematic.
So, Roshi, you could rewrite that precept as do not see yourself as separate from others. I mean, that's really what it's saying. Yeah.
Well, you could take the 16 Bodhisattva precepts and say that.
Or you could add every single koan and
Yeah, you can take the 700 koans and, you know.
That'll be my presentation from now on.
No, you see, that's the problem. That's the problem, you know. That's the problem. Every koan could be, you know, presented the same way, but you know, that's not appropriate. And besides, it's not any fun.
the shortcut doesn't work.
No. Are there any other questions?
Is he saying that the Kensho would be repeated though, or there's just one?
I beg your pardon? The Kensho experience is multiple or just one?
singular. You have one and you're on your way. Or you have to keep having this experience to bring yourself back.
I have had several occasions in which I have had what I would regard as a realization of some sort. It's no big deal. It's not a big experience, but it is certainly one that changes your attitude, one that causes you to see the world in a different way. And yes, multiple occasions, I think, occur and are important, because there is a tendency to forget.
Oh, that's what I was asking. So you can actually slip back into your old way of thinking and then re-recognize.
Right.
Not only can, but will.
I mean, that's why this is a practice. This is a practice. You know, and you have to affirm yourself, and you have to affirm the myriad things coming forward to affirm you repeatedly. There's no way around that. There's a great koan in here, and this is case 17 in the Shoyoroku. Hogan asked Administrator Monk Shusan, if there's even a hair's breadth of difference, heaven and earth are clearly separated. You know? As soon as you think of the self, you are immediately separated from everything else. How do you understand this? Shusan replied, if there's even a hair's breadth of difference, heaven and earth are clearly separated, Hogan said. If that's so, how could you understand it? Shusan answered, I'm just this. How about you, Osho? Hogan remarked, if there's even a hair's difference, heaven and earth are clearly separated.
Yeah.
Right. You have to repeat it.